Hey people, it's Wall here. Welcome to Wallcraft. Today marks a very special update. A major patch has been added today, October 28th, 2023. And today marks the update of survival, rare mobs, and a few world systems such as weather, thirst, and hunger. Now let's get right into it without further ado. Before we begin though, I would like to give a huge thanks to all the Patreon supporters, to the contributors on VMangos who help support the project with their code, and to Mr. Ever Jr. for his lovely work in Blender. He was able to do some amazing things with the Alpha Ironforge model to help get that all spruced up for play. Now, beginning with today, the update, I know it's been quite some time, approximately 3 months since we've had our last patch, but as summer comes to an end, we're able to push more updates and more work into the game to make our dreams come true. And one of those dreams is to restore the original loot systems that Blizzard had intended for the game. Now, many of you are aware that World of Warcraft has many influences and roots from other games like EverQuest, one of them being the loot system that was originally intended for vanilla WoW. See, in EverQuest, when you kill a mob, there's a chance when it respawns that it will respawn as a rare named mob, and that rare named mob will be carrying an item. That item is specific to the mob that you're killing, and when it dies, it'll drop that item for you. Blizzard originally intended something similar for this, but realized that it wasn't really feasible or worth the effort to really fill out the loot tables in such a manner. So they used pooled drops for all the world BOE items and all the rare and epics. Instead of having them drop from specific mobs, they would just have them in a big pool, and those mobs would be able to access a role on that table. Made it much easier for them as developers to really fill out the loot throughout the game, but it leaves a little lacking for the players. The players, when they kill a rare mob, oftentimes they only get a green item. When they do get a blue BOE item, it's from a random mob. A tiny whelp might drop, a blue BOE war axe or a sword. Doesn't really make sense for the most part. Now, going through the game files, I was able to notice that mobs 1 through level 20 don't particularly drop rare items, but they originally had very unique loot roles that belong to them specifically. In fact, if you go through rare mobs 1 through 10, levels 1 through 10, most of the times they'll drop a very unique named white item, or a green item even. And those items might be sought after by twinks or low-level characters who are just starting out in their journey, but it's not something that endgame players really have a desire to hunt, nor would they have a reason to, as there's many other ways to make money and obtain better items in the game. Well, with the introduction of today's update, the newest patch, we've brought back those original intended systems. Every single rare in the game has been given unique elite stats to ensure a difficult challenge for the players slaying them. And every single rare in the game is guaranteed to drop a specific blue BOE item. Those items are not obtainable from anywhere else in the game, ensuring that these mobs are a unique avenue to very powerful and game-changing artifacts. Now, when you kill one of these mobs, which may require even a team of 3 to 5 players, perhaps more in some cases, these items are always bind on equip, obtainable by your party, and randomly rolled between a player. So you do have to ensure when you're hunting that you're hunting with people who you'd like to trust and see also excel in the game. Now, even if you are soloing, just be aware that every single rare mob has a 40-hour respawn timer flat. Their corpses will despawn 1 hour before they respawn at 39 hours. This gives players a good way of knowing exactly when rare mobs are going to be spawned and when they should be hunting for them. You can absolutely be assured that there will be much contest between guilds, players, and groups to obtain these unique drops. All of these items that are uniquely listed can only be obtained a maximum of 219 times per year due to the 40-hour respawn. Many of them won't even be dropped that much. In addition, there's over 50 new rare mobs that have been refinished and re-implemented into the game, which were originally unadded by Blizzard. Many examples exist around the world. I'll show you a few later in this video, but for now, we're just going to take a look at this one. Barrel Ghost. Originally a level 62 blue rare mob dragon, he was unimplemented into Mass Thrill and forgotten about. But now, with Wallcraft, he is back. We're going to kill him real quick and see what he drops. A Staff of Hail Mage Fire. Absolutely lovely. Look at that. That's a powerful item. That's actually a really good item. We're going to respawn him for the next player. But man, let me tell you, people are going to enjoy this because not only are there many new mobs, there's many new items. Many very powerful items. Alright, now fellas, let's get on to the next part of the update. And that would be world and weather systems. World and weather systems have existed in the game for some time, but we're not fully finished. Now we're getting closer to that point. Still not all the way there, but with this new update, what we have is 2 new systems, including a new weather system. The first system I'd like to discuss is the Hunger and Thirst systems. The Hunger and Thirst systems are essentially debuffs that will accumulate every 10 minutes that you go without eating or drinking food or water. These debuffs will stack up to 10 times, and every time they stack, they increase the debilitating effect that they do. For Thirst, your power regeneration is reduced by 10% per stack, and for Hunger, your health regeneration is reduced by 10% per stack. Now, Thirst is very unique in that it says power regeneration. That doesn't just mean mana users, that means all power. So, for example, a rogue with 5 stacks of Thirst, his energy would only tick up at half the rate it normally does. Warriors experience greater rage decay when they're thirsty. And mana users, of course, their mana stops regenerating the thirstier that they are. These effects can be very easily cleared by getting hold of any food or water in the game. In fact, we're going to go talk to the innkeeper right over here. Oop, bartender. We're going to get some milk and some food. We're going to have a drink and eat, and those debuffs go away immediately. Now, it'll be 10 minutes since I last ate or drank that the timer will tick up and apply those debuffs, meaning you simply have to eat or drink every 10 minutes to keep them at bay. This brings us to the next part, though, is a new weather system, hot weather. There are 6 zones in the game and 4 dungeons or raid instances that have hot weather. Hot weather is a weather type where your thirst will stack up at a faster rate depending on the heat level of the zone. Out of those 10 zones listed, they each have a unique individual heat level ranging from 2 to 5, with the standard zones being a flat 1. The multiplier is multiplied obviously by that number. So for an example, Badlands and Tannerus have a heat index of 2, meaning your thirst will decrease twice as fast there. For Molten Core, their heat index is 5, meaning your thirst will increase 5 times as fast. Every 2 minutes in Molten Core, you'll gain a thirst debuff, and you'll have to take a drink of water to slake that away. Now, that means boss fights that extend over 2 minutes will see deteriorating effects for users, especially energy and rage users, who will notice a greater stunting. Mana users will run out of mana slowly over time if they're not drinking. But being a rogue and not having the energy, having 8 stacks of thirst and only getting 4 energy per tick is very debilitating. So it's something that you definitely want to stay on top of and maintain. Very easy though. You just eat or drink. Simple as that. Now this brings us on to the next part of the update, and that is the survival skill. The survival skill has finally been implemented, and as you can see, it has some new unique features. What we're going to take a look at first is the craftable items. Survival can be learned in any major capital simply by speaking to a guard. They'll direct you to the new survival trainers. As well, all guard dialogues in major cities have been updated to reflect inscription, jewel crafting, survival properly, including Alpha Ironforge. And all guard dialogues are updated, something that we'll discuss in a moment though when we get to that. For now, we're going to take a look at the crafted items that come from survival, and we'll start off with the torches. Torches can be crafted and then lit on any of these campfires that you light. The torches can then be wielded in your offhand, and they'll provide protection from cold weather effects as well as a spirit buff. The campfires that you light provide the same effect, but obviously they are static objects on the ground. Moving on to the next addition for survival is the dust mask. Now, there will be more weather gear added in the future, but for now, we have the dust mask, which is a craftable item with 125 survival, requiring 5 wool cloth, and when equipped, it grants protection from the effects of sandstorms. In survival, you're going to see a lot of different weather gear implemented into the game, and those gear slots are essentially going to be the trade-off for protection against that specific element. For example, rubber boots will be added to the game that will grant you protection from lightning strikes while in stormy weather, and things of that nature, with the strength of the slot essentially dictating the trade-off between using the gear and the benefit that you're gaining from having that protection. Obviously, cold weather protection requires either you to be near a fireplace, a campfire, which you can just simply light at the spot where you're training, or have an offhand torch, which for some classes is more impactful than others. Moving on though, of course you can make your flint and tinder out of some rough stone and simple wood, something that you have on hand, and it's a very easy way to get those early skill ups. More crafts will be added for survival for weather gear and various things in the future, but for now this is a very good baseline. We're going to move on to the unique parts of survival though. Now you're asking yourself, all these things require all this wood, how do I go about getting that wood? Well, you talk to a survival vendor in the major capital, you buy a woodcutting hatchet, and these hatchets are a new unique item subclass. They're not classified as a weapon, they're much like a fishing pole, and that they are a utility item that you use. You equip the wood axe though, use your woodcutting spell that you get with learning survival, and you go up to any tree in the game and you can begin woodcutting. And when you woodcut that tree, you'll gain wood depending on the zone's level, and the chance of gaining that wood is rolled based on your survival skill. So lower level zones will provide simple wood, whereas mid-tier zones will provide dried or seasoned woods, with the top tier zones providing the skeet wood, which is used in the highest level of crafts. And of course, this is every single tree in game. Using a very unique G3D call, I'm able to determine the location of static map objects that are normally part of the map and not actually game objects, and I can determine whether or not they're trees and give the okay for you to woodcut them. So if you notice I'm trying to chop at nothing and I can't, I can go try and chop a fence, I won't be able to. You know, no other object can I chop besides trees. Some cactuses, some roots, whatnot, anything that's going to provide wood essentially, or some sort of scrap material. I do have plans on in the future of adding a woodworking type ability, skill I should say, that would allow you to craft shields, arrows, spears and pole arms, things of that nature. And the wood that is dropped from specific trees would probably be reworked at that point, so that each tree type has its specific type of wood that the players would have to venture out in the world to harvest in a very specific fashion. But for now, the survival skill is allowing you to the ability to gather those 4 types of wood that are used in crafts currently. More to come in the future, but plenty for now to work with. Let's move on though to the real exciting part. Woodcutting is really cool and all, and gives you some cool stuff to do and generate some resources, maybe even make some money on the side. Let's get on to the real fun stuff though. The real fun stuff would be constructing your shelters. Now, survival is known for having world shelters that provide benefits. The shelters that you create last for up to 30 minutes and have a 30-minute cooldown. All of the shelters have been specifically edited in a hex editor by me, so that they have no collision, meaning you can't use them to block the paths of anywhere, whatnot. And they have very specific scripting so that you cannot resummon a shelter too close to other ones or any other game object, meaning I couldn't put my tent on top of a mailbox to grief players. The game won't let me. But outside of capital cities or places where you're not allowed to duel, such as instances or raids, you're able to construct a shelter anywhere out in the open game world. And I already have one set up, so I'm not even going to make another one. And these shelters provide protection from stormy weather effects. So with a shelter set up, and then I get my flint and tinder, we're going to make a campfire. Make the best campfire. Make a blazing campfire. So with my shelter and with my campfire, I now have protection from cold weather effects and from the rain. So if it's raining, if it's snowing, if there's any type of weather effects that are going to be impairing to me, these will provide protection from those. You have to be within the radius, of course, to receive these buffs. The shelter radius and the fire radius being about 20 yards. So setting these up in a location where you're going to be grinding mobs for quite some time is definitely beneficial. Especially with the shelter lasting for up to half an hour. It's definitely going to be worthwhile for your time. Let's get on to what I think is probably the coolest part. At least in my opinion. I really enjoy this one. We're going to swim down. We'll just go underwater and do it. The fishing boat. The fishing boat, ladies and gentlemen. This is a very, very cool addition. With survival, you can construct a fishing boat using 20 seasoned wood, which can be obtained from zones approximately level 40 to 50. And when I deploy the fishing boat, it will automatically detect the correct level of the water and place itself at the surface of the water, floating precisely. Now, to board the boat, I added special scripting to where you can just swim to the back of the boat, right-click on it, and it will automatically place you in the bench. As best as I possibly can. It's not an actual seat, so I'm using just a little trick to teleport you into the correct location where the boat is spawned. But yeah, that's absolutely beautiful. Boats last for up to 1 hour, or I'm sorry, up to 30 minutes. And when you deploy a boat, you can stand on it, you can sit on it, you can fish from it. Really just a nice little novelty thing, but especially for fishing, when you find a fishing pool out in the open world that you want to fish from, you deploy your boat, you can stand right next to it, not even have to worry. It's a very, very nice addition. Boats cannot be summoned within a 10-yard radius of other boats, so you don't have to worry about people trying to grief you by stacking theirs up on you. And it cannot be summoned within X amount of distance from other objects as well. Boats, as well, I should state, cannot be summoned within fatigue zones. So if you're out in the open waters where there's fatigue, you won't be able to summon a boat out there. Though I do have potential plans to simply eliminate fatigue zones altogether and expand the map's water edge for future boat-themed activities, naval combat type thing. But that's down the line. Anywho, moving on. Let's go to the last two additions to survival here that are of note, and that is Forager. Forager is a welcome addition. It is a form of tracking that you can gain at 225 survival, I recall. And with Forager, you can track both herb bushes and ore nodes on the map. So I'm going to go ahead and fly over. And all of these iron deposits, these king bloods, everything. I can see both herbs and ore at the same time while tracking. So you don't have to swap rapidly between the two. All you have to do is just get your survival up and you'll be able to track both of them. Even if you're not a miner or an herbalist, you'll be able to track both of them, which is very nice. With survival, you can essentially ensure that you are able to keep an eye on rare nodes like thorium or black lotuses, things of that nature. And on to the last thing, camouflage. Camouflage is the level 275 skill survival ability. After standing still for 10 seconds when I activate it, I can enter a camouflage state hiding me from enemy sight. It's much like Shadow Meld, but it has a 10-second activation time where if you move, it will cancel. And after 10 seconds, I enter a melded state. This is very, very nice for using it while I'm nearby a shelter or a fire or somewhere where I want to AFK or perhaps even set up an ambush on an enemy, or just generally be safer out in the open world, especially with the dangerous world mechanics like war mode and various battles that will be raging across Wallcraft. Camouflage is very nice ability to have in your toolkit, and it ensures that your survival is all but guaranteed there. Alright boys, next up on the agenda we're going to be talking about some of the class reworks and spell updates, so let's get right into it. The Paladin seal system has had a small adjustment. You can no longer cast seals directly onto players, instead they're now judged onto other players. If you judge an enemy target, you'll apply the judgment. If you judge a friendly target, you'll apply the seal to them. This gives essentially the same functionality, but now ties the cooldown into judgment instead of directly into the seals. Previously, the seal system was based on the alpha seal system. This update still is, but a little bit of a modification to allow a little bit more ease of use. It's got a little lower of a skill ceiling, but there was a few too many plates to be spinning at once previously, so I feel like this is good compromise here. Next up on the list we have Warrior's Bloodthirst. Warrior's Bloodthirst no longer heals you when you damage the enemy, and now gives you an aura which lasts for up to 6 seconds and allows 50% of your health regeneration to continue in combat while it's active. So when you use Bloodthirst, you can be absolutely assured that you're going to be getting that health regeneration in combat, and with spirit-based builds now being much more viable for a warrior, you're going to have a lot of benefit from having that high health regen, especially the amount of spirit that you're seeing on your tier gear is definitely going to be a benefit for you. We'll touch more on that later, but for now, the next update that we have on the list is Warlock's Metamorphosis. Warlock's Metamorphosis is now able to summon a demon without canceling the metamorph. So, using Demonic Sacrifice, when you turn into your demon form, you're no longer restricted from having a demon pet out as well, if it's not just an Infernal and Doomguard. You can now use the 4 standard pets. Now, I thought long and hard about it, and I wanted to expand the meta a little bit more, and I realized it's not really good gameplay for them to just not have access to their pet, especially when they put skills and talents in. I knew that previously there was a bit of a 50-50 dichotomy, you know, left and right path on the tree where you could either become the demon or summon a powerful demon. I want to combine those a little bit more fluidly, so now while you're in metamorph form, you're able to summon your demon. Of course, you're still restricted to the specific metamorph form's abilities, along with your curses and demonology abilities. But the overall effect should be much greater for metamorph players. For demonology players in particular, it should give them a lot more gameplay options and utility for their class. Still very powerful. With the pets, obviously, they have the additional power of having the pet, but I feel like it's a good swap out for them. Moving on to the next one, Frozen Orb for Mage now ricochets off of walls. It no longer passes through walls. In fact, I'm just going to go ahead and log on to a Mage. Take a look at that real quick. Previously, your Frozen Orb would pass through solid objects. It would be delayed a little bit, but it would pass through them. Now with Frozen Orb, when I launch it, you'll see it launches at the wall and it will ricochet back to me. I'm standing in Stormwind, so it's probably going to have a bad visual. Do a Gold Shire here. Yeah, so when I launch Frozen Orb, it will, any wall that it hits, it will ricochet off of. It still has active damage effects, so when it hits a player, you can definitely be sure it's going to be hurting them. This adds a lot more fluidity to the gameplay too. Let's say you're in a battleground and there's somebody in a corner, you launch a Frozen Orb at them, that thing is going to hit them multiple times while it's bouncing back. So, definitely powerful, definitely want to watch your positioning against Frozen Orbs, and not just against the original path of it, which, you know, you could just move out of the way of. You got to watch out for that ricochet now. And moving up next on the list, we have some fixes. The two fixes, the most notable ones, are Intimidating Shout and Primal Hunter. Primal Hunter, for hunters, survival hunters, now bools correctly whether or not you're wearing a polearm and you have the talent equipped. Previously it was giving the effect when you were disarmed and then swapped weapons. It now applies correctly in all cases, so it checks if you have the polearm actually equipped. As well, intimidating shout for warriors no longer requires the target to be facing you. There was an error in the core which has been corrected, so no worries there. Intimidating shout is now working as intended. Moving on to the next biggest part of the update that I really want to talk about is the ability reworks for Spirit. Spirit, often a neglected stat because it's pretty mediocre, offers just a bit more regen, which is pretty useless for most classes, especially non-casters. Spirit often was neglected, but on Wallcraft it's been breathed new life into it. Using the original 2004 Brady Games official strategy guide outline on what Spirit was originally intended to do in the beta and alpha versions of World of Warcraft, I went ahead and implemented the effects and added the scaling, of course, previously for classes so that they'd be able to gain AP depending on their class from Spirit. Now you have the added benefit of Spirit increasing your chance to proc. This includes all procs. Proc per minute, item procs, percentage procs, procs from spells, abilities, talents, etc. Every 100 points of Spirit will increase your proc chance by 50%, meaning 50% of the base amount. So, for example, if your Hand of Justice has a 2% chance to proc, and you have 100 Spirit, you'll gain a 100 or a 50% bonus to that 2%. So your Hand of Justice will then have a 3% chance to proc. If your weapon has a proc rate of 3 procs per minute and X amount of speed, to translate it to a 5% chance to proc, and you have 200 Spirit, you would have 100% bonus, meaning you would have a then 10% chance to proc. This scales out for all effects. The only one that I really had to modify to accommodate was Wind Fury weapon attack for the enchant for shamans, not the totem, but the enchant. Now has a proc per minute instead of just a 20% base chance, but the proc per minute is calculated to be essentially the same. This just allows the formula to scale better for Spirit on shamans. Obviously, Spirit being the main stat of shamans now. Between their attack power gained from it, their proc-based mana regen, and their procs on their weapons and Wind Fury effects, including Frostbrand. Frostbrand, especially with high Spirit and high healing power, very powerful. Procs very rapidly, very often. Moving on, though, for Spirit-based procs. Spirit-based procs will now, of course, affect everything, so the formulas may be retuned, but I went pretty low in that regard, meaning you do have to stack quite a significant amount. For a Tier 3 warrior, they have a baseline of about 200 Spirit on their Tier 3 gear, and a shaman has about 400, so that gives you a good idea of where it's sitting at. Shamans and warriors having some of the highest amounts of Spirit in the game. Hunters also have high Spirit on their gear, but shamans, warriors, and hunters really are the main beneficiaries of this. Other classes, of course, gain the huge benefit too, especially with priests being able to buff your Spirit with Divine Spirit. As a rogue or any other class, really, you're definitely going to see a huge impact from Spirit. Now, moving on. Crushing damage now correctly rolls when using weapons with elemental bonus damage. So like an item like Shadowfang, where it has 4 to 10 or whatever shadow damage. Crushing now correctly rolls its damage. Previously it wasn't accounting for the elemental damage, so the damage was actually lower than intended. Should now work correctly. And this brings us on to the next part. The next part, boys, would be map updates. Map updates includes fixing Alpha Ironforge. Alpha Ironforge being totally finished at this point. I'm going to go ahead and browse through. Just running too fast here. Alpha Ironforge is totally finished now. All of the guards' point of interest dialogues now reflect all of the proper locations of trainers and NPCs. The new NPCs for the new skills, such as inscription, jewel crafting, survival, those have all been added as well. As you can see, I have the jewel crafting trainer over in Ironforge here.
What's on your mind?
And the elevators have been added. The nicest thing. Of course, let's take a look at the work that Ever Jr. did with the metal grates in the center area and in the old Ironforge area by King Magni. These grates will keep players from falling through. Previously, it was just an open area with lava down there, which actually doesn't exist in this map. So you just fall to your death or get stuck. These grates should keep players from being forced to hearth out or die while traveling in Ironforge. The tram, we're going to go take a look at. We have the elevators. The original elevators are added. This is heading down towards the old Ironforge area. The deep run tram is not implemented yet because it never existed in original alpha, so I have to essentially add it from scratch myself. Look at that. That's beautiful. These elevators take you right down to the lowest parts of Ironforge, the Gnome area and Old Ironforge, where King Magni is. Horde are going to have a fun time fitting their 40-man raid onto this when they go kill King Magni. Yeah, look at this. Old Ironforge, boys. You got the throne set up. Got all the amenities, everything all set up here. Got Baron Redstone, the senator, sitting over here, just chilling. Yeah, looking good, boys. Alright, we're going to go to the next map location that we fixed, which would be Dalaran Crater. Dalaran Crater was available. Unfortunately, the map wasn't fully generated correctly, but we managed to fix it. Took a lot of work in Naga to get all of these assets. I had to backport everything and then edit all of the Wrath of the Lich King client patches to edit it properly for backporting down into vanilla. It was just a whole mess. Anywho, though, we've got Dalaran fully implemented for the crater, and of course the Dalaran city will be implemented as floating above Hillsbrad, taking off, heading towards Northrend later down the road. And Dalaran in vanilla will be a post-max hub for raiders when they're entering in their Karazhan raiding phase. We'll offer some unique benefits and amenities that they will be able to experience, and it'll be floating somewhere above here. So be on the lookout for that. That's definitely exciting and definitely something we need to stay tuned for. Fixed the Dust Wallow Marsh terrain issue. That should be all squared away now. There's no gaps in the terrain. The Ogre Tauren city that's abandoned, covered in slime, has now been re-implemented. There's no longer a hole in the map there. Let's see. Booty Bay, missing water spots. We managed to fix partially. Unfortunately, I would have to redo the house, the player house here, but... Uh-oh. I am not friendly to them. Yeah, I can't even remember my rep. Pretty sure I'm hated with them. Maybe I attacked somebody here. No idea. This missing water has been fixed. Unfortunately, there is a bit of an issue where there's a fatigue zone here. I can't fix that. It's just in this one little spot. That's just how it is. Don't sit there. It's my best advice. It's just an issue with the waterfall because there's two different planes of water in one grid. It creates issues when exporting maps. So previously, though, the water was missing here and it was just a big hole. I managed to fill it in, and the water, you can swim in it. Path's fine. There's no issues in the editor. It just has fatigue flags I can't get rid of. Either way, though, those are the map fixes. We had some issues with the maps from prior. Those are all addressed now. Let's get on to the miscellaneous fixes, on to the last parts of this update here. Rexar and Misha no longer aggro players unless they're provoked. Something that was a big complaint. Was previously fixed, but then got reverted somehow. I don't know. I fixed it again, though. I fixed Hearthstones going on cooldown if you use them in combat without teleporting the player. Hearthstones can no longer be used in combat whatsoever, so you don't have to worry about them going on cooldown mistakenly. Mage portals as well can no longer be used in combat. You can't summon them, and you can't click them while in combat. So there's no way to port while in combat, essentially. I fixed an issue with Crusader enchants on maces. There was an issue with Crusader proccing on maces incorrectly. That's been corrected. I fixed shiny lure reagent requirements for jewel crafting to make fishing lures. I don't have that learned on this character. The shiny lure now has the correct feather requirements. Previously, the feather for it was unobtainable in game. I fixed survival torches and fires not correctly stacking. Survival torches and fires should stack, providing a total of 32 maximum spirit when you have both auras on at a time. Inscription scrolls now properly stack with their respective buffs, such as Arcane Intelligence will now properly stack with the Inscription Scroll Intelligence buff. I fixed a few spell tooltips that had incorrect tooltip dialogue. Those are all corrected now, so they have the correct text. And as well, I added something very special, the Corrupted Blood event. The original ZG Plague event that took over the world of Azeroth has been re-implemented into the game. It is a toggle feature that is currently disabled, but one day a year I will enable it so we can have some fun with the original ZG Corrupted Blood event. And lots of excitement there. Lots of exciting things. Lots of exciting updates today and to come in the near future. I'm very excited to get working on the next batch, which will feature some more skill updates and world system updates. I want to get the exhaustion system all squared away, and some various other aspects of the game. So, very, very happy y'all tuned in. Very happy y'all were able to come check out the new patch. I hope y'all stick around and enjoy while we prepare for the beta release later this year. Something I very much so look forward to, and I hope you do as well. Until next time, my name is Wall from Wallcraft. It was a pleasure.